Hi, I'm E.M. Strickbine, and I write the Green Beret Barber of Orange Street book project, which is available at www.thegreenberetbarber.com. Today, I want to talk a little bit about George Miller's 3,000 Years of Longing, my work, and genie lore in general. George Miller's 3,000 Years of Longing is based on A.S. Byatt's work, The Djinn in the Nightingale's Eye. I made a few notes to talk about some of the things that I found interesting in the movie and how it relates to my work, and so let's get into it. The first thing I thought that was interesting, and you'll see this a lot in folklore and fairy tales, is the emphasis on numbers. And when we're talking about genies, we're always going to be talking about threes, because in any genie story you read, it's always 3 wishes. It's never 2, it's never 5, it's never 10, it's always 3. And 3s are very significant numbers in numerology and in several different traditions. In the Christian tradition, 3 is significant, of course, because of the Trinity. In Chinese tradition, 3 is regarded as the very luckiest number. 3s are also seen as symbols of confidence, creativity, self-reliance, and positive energy. Also interesting to note that the number 3 is ruled by the planet Jupiter, which is associated with all things abundant. So when we think of genies, and automatically just by associating them with the number 3, we're thinking about things that are magical, that are creative, that are full of abundant energy, literally maybe the energy of Jupiter or Zeus, as he was known in the Roman pantheon. In the movie, we see the number 3 a number of times. We see that when Alethea checks into her hotel room, number on her hotel room is 333. I believe there are 3 stories told during the movie. There's always the 3 wishes. Her apartment in London is apartment building 3 or 33. I can't remember exactly how many 3s, but there were lots of 3s in this movie, and everywhere Alethea lived, she lived in a 3. So definitely the filmmakers were paying note to that, and I really appreciated that. I thought it was really interesting in the first scene between Alethea and the Djinn that they begin communicating with each other by speaking in Greek. Like, as a writer, you're always looking for overlaps between your work and others. They didn't go too much further into speaking about anything about Greece, but in my work, I write a lot about origin stories of genies, and I love that this movie was all about the origin story of this particular Djinn. And I would say, because I have 5 genies I write about: my green genie, my purple genie, my black genie, my blue genie, and my red genie. And my purple, black, and blue genies, they all have their roots in ancient Greece, and these are my notes on them and their origin stories. So I found it interesting that they started there, and then of course they're in Turkey. Turkey, if you're not familiar, is where we now know the ancient city of Troy was. So I also write about Troy in my work, so there was another little overlap that I loved. London also features in my work as well, but in later stories about those who come in possession of the various genie lamps. My story is much longer than the single book of A.S. Byatt's, lovely book though. I will probably have 8 books by the time I'm done. I have 5 genies to write about and 4 different masters. So, and I'm very much looking forward to going into the origin stories. I was thrilled to see them talk about Solomon. If you're not familiar with the story of Solomon and the first Djinn, Djinn existed for a very long time in the East, and there is a story about Solomon bottling the first Djinn, and that's how we got our first genie in the bottle. And I loved that they showed that in this movie. I am also going to be referencing that in my work. I have found that in my research, so I love that. I'd say the biggest, so those are some of the things that are similar between my work and and this movie. So basically, if you are hungry for more genie stuff, when you're done seeing this movie, I would love it if you would come over and explore more genie things on my website. But I'll tell you the biggest divergence. Whereas the genie in this movie describes himself as God-fearing and honorable, which is wonderful for this movie. And this movie has a happy ending. I must say that my genies in their personality could not be more different. They have the same powers. They apparently come from the same places and share the same origins. But my genies are much more what Alethea calls the trickster jinns, where I think my genies would agree with the jinn in 3,000 Years of Longing that being bottled is the closest thing to death for a jinn. The genies in my story exist within their bottle. They do not exist without their bottle. They don't become friends with their masters. In fact, it's always a push-pull in my stories between the genie wanting to kind of move on from the master and kind of always working against them a little bit. I find that because I find genies to be self-interested beings that wish to be free. And we share that, me and George Miller's interpretation of A.S. Byatt's work, share it, that genies want to be free. And you find that in all the genie stories. Well, in my research, and I found this in a really old text, it said that you need to wish a genie free on your first wish. And if you do that, you will always have good luck. However, if you don't do that and you use the wish for whatever your own selfish needs are or whatever, then you're basically doomed along with the genie. And that is the perspective I write from. In the movie, it's exactly opposite. Like if this genie ever manages to get somebody to not die during the course of being granted their wishes, if he can actually keep them alive long enough to fulfill their wishes, then he gets to be free. So I take a different track on that, but I would say I am more in keeping with the lore on it, which is, and it's not like genie bottles come with a book of instructions. We're talking about the ancient world here. It wasn't a place filled with instructions. It was either a know you know, or you know and you don't know. And if you don't know, well, there weren't a whole lot of second chances. I'm going with the perspective of the ancient world, which is, if you find a genie bottle, or if you've watched this video, you'll know. If you find a genie bottle, you have to wish the genie free on your first wish. You get good luck for the rest of your life, but you don't get anything else. That's just the rules. That's just how the cookie crumbles. However, if you don't do that and you decide to, I don't know, become rich, or, I don't know, get a yacht, or get your true love, or conquer your enemies, or take over the world, or whatever, you're going to be enslaved to the genie for the rest of your life. So these are some places that we diverged, but I still love this movie. One thing, the thing I think that my work, genie lore in general, when it hasn't been, and no shade to Disney, I love the Aladdin movies, but when it hasn't been like Disney-fied and made cute and soft and cuddly, when you get into the lore, and they said this in the movie, and this is definitely the theme in my work, wishing is always a cautionary tale. It's basically, wishing is getting something for nothing. So it's always a cautionary tale. Alethea talks about it in the movie. She's obsessed in the beginning about avoiding these traps. Oh, I'm going to make a wish. Oh, it's going to be a trap. Oh, this, oh, that. I don't want to do this thing. It's always a cautionary tale. And she's absolutely right. I mean, luckily in this movie, it ends happily because the genie is happy when his 3 wishes are filled and he gets to be free. But in my version, basically, the genie wants to roll through these selfish masters because every time a new master comes up, that's his only opportunity to be free, is on that first wish. After that, it's just a situation of not pleasant for the genies. So that's more my take on it. So yeah, I don't know about happy endings with genie works. I love that this movie had one. I love a happy ending, I'm not gonna lie. I would say the ending on my work, because I really just I wasn't going to write a big work like this without knowing the whole thing. Like, I did all that work first. Like, I laid all this out. I know the beginning, middle, end. I know all that. That's what actually all this is. So this is the whole book, beginning, middle, and end. As much of it has been downloaded from my brain in any case. So I know the ending of my book. I would say my ending would be a closer akin to, in feeling at least, with where the movie ends before it jumps to 3 years later and you get the happy ending. Like, my ending is more like, how'd I write it down? I guess I have a not so happy but sort of happy ending, which I feel like is, if they had ended it before the 3 years later in the movie, that's kind of the same feeling. Anyway, so I thought that was good too. I love that Alethea called him my impossible. I think that is the best description of a genie-master relationship that I've ever encountered. So, my impossible. I love that they mentioned that genies love stories, and that I love genies and stories because every genie, and we saw a little bit in this movie, could have 1,000 stories of 1,000 masters searching for freedom. So genies, and I'm amazed that they don't appear more, because they can have so many lives, just like vampires can have so many lives. So anyway, but their lore gets a little complex, so I can understand. Anyhow, I think that's all I wanted to talk about for today. I wanted to also mention, since I did not get a chapter published this year, it's not because it is not finished, it is because it is not ready. This was a big year for me personally, where I did not have as much time to work as I would have liked. And I really don't want to ever put up anything that isn't as perfect as I personally can make it. So chapter 5 will be going up very soon. It is finished. There's no problems there. I just wanted to give a little something before the end of the year. So happy holidays, everyone. Thank you so much for reading. There is so much more to come. I really feel that my project is kind of a living art project that lives on the web. I have other book ideas that I would not choose to do this with, but this book is just, it's so long, it's so complex. I don't really think anybody would, it's hard for me to keep track of, and I know the whole thing. So I don't really worry about anybody else like getting in there. But yeah, and it just wants to live on the web. It seems the work is happy there. It allows me to have a much more fluid and dynamic relationship with it. But I guess that's true of anything when you take money out of it. So anyway, on that note, I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching, for reading. I hope you all have wonderful, happy holidays. And there is so much more to come on the book, because this year, 2023, is going to be my buckle down and go to the library year and actually get it done. So thanks, everybody. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.